Clint Eastwood, the legendary actor known for his steely gaze and fearless demeanor, thought this was just another ordinary day. He was enjoying a quiet moment, savoring his coffee at a McDonald's near his California home. Little did he know, fate had other plans. Within minutes, a 5-year-old boy holding a Happy Meal would approach his table and whisper something so unexpected, so chilling, it would leave Clint Eastwood pale as a ghost. But what did this young boy say? And why did it send one of Hollywood's toughest stars scrambling for his phone to dial 911? Buckle up, because this story is about to take a turn you never saw coming. Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from. And if you enjoy heartwarming stories like this, make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow we've got another story you won't want to miss. It all started on a sunny afternoon in a small California town. Clint Eastwood had stopped by his local McDonald's, a place he frequented for its simplicity and familiarity. But as he sat quietly, enjoying his coffee, something unusual caught his attention. A young boy, no older than 5, was sitting a few tables away with his mother. The boy, with bright eyes and an innocent smile, kept glancing over at Clint. At first, Clint thought nothing of it. After all, people often recognized him. But there was something different about this little boy's gaze. It wasn't just curiosity. It was as if he needed to tell Clint something. As Clint finished his coffee, the boy stood up, clutching his Happy Meal tightly, and walked straight toward him. Clint smiled warmly, expecting a shy hello, or maybe a request for an autograph. But instead, the boy leaned in close, whispered just a few words, and in that instant, Clint's expression completely changed. What could a 5-year-old possibly say that would leave Clint Eastwood visibly shaken? Whatever it was enough to make Clint grab his phone and urgently dial 911. And as the seconds ticked by, the tension in that McDonald's grew thicker with every passing moment. As the boy whispered into Clint Eastwood's ear, the color drained from Clint's face. His famously calm demeanor cracked for just a moment as he sat there, frozen, processing the boy's words. The boy's mother, noticing the interaction, quickly got up from her seat and rushed over. She looked concerned, even apologetic. "I'm so sorry," she said nervously. "He's been saying strange things all week. I hope he's not bothering you." But Clint, still pale, held up a hand to stop her mid-sentence. "What did he just say?" Clint asked, his voice low but urgent. The mother hesitated, clearly unsure of how to respond. She glanced at her son, who was now clutching Clint's hand tightly, as if he didn't want to let go. Finally, she replied, I don't know. He hasn't told me anything." But Clint shook his head. "This is serious," he said. "I need to call someone right now." Pulling out his phone, Clint dialed 911, his voice steady but tense as he relayed the situation to the operator. The words urgent and immediate response echoed loud enough for the mother and those nearby to hear. Whatever the boy had said, it wasn't just odd. It was something that couldn't be ignored. It didn't take long for the sound of sirens to cut through the afternoon air. Within minutes, 2 police cars pulled into the McDonald's parking lot, their lights flashing. The officers quickly entered the restaurant, scanning the room for Clint Eastwood, who stood near the boy and his mother, looking unusually serious. As the officers approached, Clint stepped forward to meet them. "I need you to listen carefully," he said, his voice calm but firm. "This little boy just told me something, and I think it could be a matter of life or death." The officers exchanged glances, their curiosity piqued, but their skepticism apparent. After all, how often does a Hollywood icon call 911 over a few whispered words from a child? But Clint wasn't backing down. He gestured to the boy, who was now hiding behind his mother's leg, clutching her hand tightly. "What he told me, it's not just a kid's imagination," Clint insisted. "There's something real here, and we need to act fast." The officers crouched down to the boy's level, speaking gently to try to coax him into repeating what he had said. But the boy shook his head, his small frame trembling. He refused to speak, his eyes darting between Clint and his mother, as if he were afraid of saying too much. One of the officers turned to Clint. "Mr. Eastwood, can you tell us exactly what the boy said?" Clint hesitated for a moment, his gaze shifting to the mother, as if silently seeking her approval. When she gave a reluctant nod, Clint took a deep breath and said, "He told me someone's in danger. He said he saw something bad, and he doesn't think anyone else knows about it." The room fell silent as Clint Eastwood's words hung in the air. He said someone's in danger. The officers exchanged serious glances, their skepticism fading as the weight of the statement settled in. This wasn't a prank or a misunderstanding. Something about Clint's tone, combined with the boys' visible fear, told them they needed to take this seriously. One of the officers gently placed a hand on the boy's shoulder and said, "Hey buddy, it's okay. We're here to help. Can you tell us what you saw?" The boy hesitated, his wide eyes flickering between the officer, Clint, and his mother. Finally, in a trembling voice, he whispered, "I saw the man take her." The officer leaned in closer. "What man? Can you tell me what happened?" The boy nodded slowly, his small hands gripping his mother's tightly. "I saw him take the girl. She was crying, and he put her in his car. It was a big car, black, and he drove away really fast." The room seemed to grow colder as the boy's words sank in. The officers straightened, their expressions now filled with urgency. "When did this happen?" one of them asked. The boy looked down, his voice barely audible. "A little while ago, near the playground." Clint's jaw tightened. He turned to the officers. "That playground is just a few blocks away," he said. "If what he's saying is true, there's no time to waste." The officers nodded, already radioing for backup and alerting nearby patrols to search the area. As the boy's mother knelt down to comfort him, Clint stepped closer and quietly said, "You're a brave kid. What you just did might save someone's life." The boy looked up at Clint, his fear giving way to a flicker of hope, and whispered, "I just want her to be okay." With the boy's revelation, the officers wasted no time springing into action. Radio calls went out across the district, describing the vehicle, a large black car, and alerting all units to be on the lookout. The details were sparse, but the urgency was clear. Every passing second felt like an eternity. Clint Eastwood, not one to sit idly by, offered to guide the officers to the playground the boy had mentioned. "I know the area well," Clint said firmly. "If there's any chance this happened nearby, we need to check it out now." The officers agreed, leading Clint, the boy, and his mother to the patrol cars parked outside. As they sped toward the playground, tension filled the air. The boy sat quietly in the back seat with his mother, clutching her hand as he stared out the window. Clint sat beside them, his sharp eyes scanning the streets as if every car they passed might hold the answers they were searching for. When they arrived at the playground, it was eerily quiet. The swing swayed gently in the breeze, and the bright colors of the jungle gym seemed out of place in the grim situation. One of the officers turned to the boy. "Can you show us where it happened?" he asked gently. The boy hesitated for a moment before pointing toward a narrow path that led away from the playground and into a wooded area. The officers moved quickly, following the boy's lead, while Clint stayed close behind. Every sound, the crunch of leaves, the rustle of branches, felt magnified as they pushed deeper into the woods. The boy clung to his mother, his small voice trembling as he said, "It was right here. The car was parked here." The officers scanned the area, looking for any signs, a footprint, tire tracks, anything. Then, just as they were about to call in for assistance, one of them froze. "Over here!" he shouted, crouching near the edge of the path. There, partially obscured by leaves, was a single clue, a child's shoe, small and pink, lying in the dirt. The sight of the small pink shoe sent a ripple of urgency through the group. One of the officers carefully picked it up, examining it for any signs that might help identify its owner. "It's fresh," he muttered, glancing at the dirt smudges on the sole. "This wasn't here long ago." The boy's mother gasped softly, pulling her son closer as the officer placed the shoe into an evidence bag. Clint Eastwood, his jaw set in determination, turned to the boy. "Do you remember anything else?" he asked gently. "Did you see where the car went after it left?" The boy hesitated, biting his lip as he tried to recall. Finally, he nodded. "It went that way," he said, pointing toward a side street visible through the trees. The officers didn't wait. They called in the update and relayed the direction to nearby patrols. Time was of the essence, and now they had a lead. Clint stayed close to the boy and his mother, offering quiet reassurance. "You did good, kid," he said, his voice steady. "What you remembered might be the key to finding her." The boy nodded, his wide eyes still filled with worry, but also a spark of hope. Just as the group began to move back toward the street, The radio on one officer's shoulder crackled to life. "We've spotted a vehicle matching the description near the highway entrance," a voice said. "It's a black SUV, and it's moving fast." The officers sprang into action, rushing back to their patrol cars with Clint and the family close behind. As they sped toward the highway, adrenaline filled the air. The officers knew they might only have one shot at stopping the vehicle before it disappeared for good. With the black SUV spotted near the highway, the officers raced against the clock to intercept it. Sirens blared as patrol cars weaved through traffic, their flashing lights cutting through the late afternoon haze. Clint Eastwood, seated in the back of one of the patrol cars, remained focused, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. The officer driving spoke into his radio, coordinating with nearby units. "We have a visual on the suspect vehicle," the voice crackled, heading northbound on Route 16, requesting backup immediately. Up ahead, the black SUV sped through the highway lanes, weaving dangerously between cars. Drivers honked and swerved, trying to avoid the erratic vehicle. Inside the patrol car, Clint turned to the boy's mother. "Stay calm," he said, his voice steady. "They're going to catch him." But even Clint, known for his unshakable composure, couldn't hide the tension in his eyes. As the patrol cars closed in, the SUV suddenly veered toward an exit ramp, attempting to lose its pursuers in the twisting streets of a suburban neighborhood. "He's turning off the highway," one officer shouted into his radio. "Unit 3, block the south exit." The chase continued, the screech of tires echoing through the quiet neighborhood. Residents peeked out from their windows, startled by the commotion. The officers stayed on the SUV's tail, their vehicles forming a tight perimeter to prevent it from escaping. "We've got him boxed in!" the lead officer shouted. "Prepare to intercept!" Finally, the black SUV skidded to a halt near the edge of a cul-de-sac. The doors flung open and a man bolted from the driver's seat, sprinting toward a nearby wooded area. The officers leapt from their vehicles, shouting commands as they pursued him on foot. Clint Eastwood stepped out of the patrol car, his gaze fixed on the scene unfolding before him. Meanwhile, one officer approached the SUV cautiously, peering through the back window. What he saw made him freeze. Grabbing his radio, he called out, "We've got someone in the back seat. It's a little girl." The tension was palpable as the officers moved swiftly toward the black SUV. One officer carefully opened the back door, his hand resting on his holstered weapon. Inside, huddled on the floor of the back seat, was a little girl, no older than 6, her tear-streaked face peeking out from behind her tangled hair. "It's okay, sweetheart," the officer said softly, crouching down to her level. "You're safe now." She looked up at him, her wide eyes filled with fear, but after a moment, she reached out her small hand, letting him help her out of the vehicle. Nearby, Clint Eastwood watched intently, relief flashing across his face as the girl was gently lifted into the officer's arms. The boy and his mother, standing beside Clint, gasped as they saw the girl. "That's her," the boy whispered, clutching his mother's hand tightly. "That's the girl I saw." As the officer carried the girl to safety, backup units arrived, securing the area and ensuring no one else was in the vehicle. Meanwhile, the suspect who had fled into the woods was quickly apprehended by the pursuing officers. Handcuffed and subdued, he was led back to the scene, his face a mix of anger and resignation. Clint stepped forward, his steady gaze locking onto the suspect. "You're not getting away with this," he said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of his words. The suspect said nothing, but it was clear he knew the game was over. The little girl, now wrapped in a warm blanket provided by the officers, clung to one of them as she was brought over to Clint and the boy. She looked up at her young rescuer, her lips trembling as she whispered, "Thank you." The boy smiled shyly, his bravery finally sinking in as he realized he had helped save her life. The scene at the cul-de-sac slowly began to calm. The suspect was placed into the back of a patrol car, his fate sealed, while the little girl remained safe in the arms of the officers. Her parents, who had been frantically searching for her, arrived minutes later, tears streaming down their faces as they embraced their daughter. The reunion was a moment of pure relief, a miracle that wouldn't have been possible without the boy's bravery and Clint Eastwood's quick thinking. Clint knelt down to the boy's level, his legendary stoicism softening into a proud smile. "You did something incredible today," Clint said, placing a reassuring hand on the boy's shoulder. "Because of you, she's going home to her family." The boy's eyes filled with emotion, and his mother pulled him close, whispering, "I'm so proud of you." As the officers began wrapping up the scene, one of them approached Clint. "Mr. Eastwood," he said, "we owe you a big thank you. If you hadn't acted so quickly, this could have ended very differently." Clint gave a modest nod. "The real hero here," he said, gesturing to the boy, "is him." The story of what happened that day spread quickly, with news outlets hailing the boy as a young hero and praising Clint Eastwood for stepping up in a moment of crisis. But for Clint, it wasn't about the headlines. It was about doing what was right. As he walked away from the scene, the little boy waved at him, a look of quiet pride on his face. Clint tipped his hat and smiled, knowing this was a day none of them would ever forget. And so, what started as an ordinary afternoon in a McDonald's turned into a story of courage, compassion, and the incredible impact of a few whispered words. It's a powerful reminder that heroes come in all shapes and sizes, and that sometimes the smallest voice can make the biggest difference. If this story inspired you, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss more heartwarming stories like this one. And as always, let us know in the comments what you thought about today's story. See you in the next one. Eripopoombu onsensekis.